Welcome to another episode of The Dark Place, a show where we delve into the most intriguing and mystifying criminal cases of the last 20 years. I'm your host, Adam, and today we're taking a deep dive into the chilling case of Christian Romero. But before we dive into this case, please check out all of our social media pages. That's on Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook, The Other People Show. Now on with our broadcast. On the morning of November 5th, 2009, authorities were shocked to discover that the cold-blooded killer responsible for the murders of two individuals was an 8-year-old boy who sought help from a neighbor, Christian Romero. A shy and quiet boy had always appeared to desire the happiness of those around him. But his grandparents and stepmother sensed that something was amiss. 29-year-old Vincent Romero and his father's roommate, 39-year-old Timothy Romans, inside their home in St. John's, Arizona, had been shot 4 times, while Timothy had suffered 6 gunshot wounds. The police found Vincent's body in the upstairs foyer. Having been shot in the head and chest, Timothy's lifeless body was discovered near the front door, also with a gunshot wound to the head and chest. No signs of forced entry or robbery were found at the scene, and there was no evidence of any disturbance in the home. The police had no reason to believe that either man had enemies, and the idea that Christian could commit such a horrific act never once crossed their minds. During their investigation, however, the police interviewed friends and family and members of the victims, but they were unable to gather any helpful information. However, everything seemed to change when they spoke to Christian. Initially, Christian denied shooting his father or his father's friend. According to his account, he had been circling the family home, as he often did while waiting for his mother to return. During his walk, he noticed an unfamiliar white car parked in the driveway, which made him feel uneasy. Consequently, he decided to return home. To his horror, when Christian reached the door, he discovered the gruesome scene. Overwhelmed with distress, he lay down beside his father and he cried. After approximately half an hour, he went to his friend's house, and the friend's father immediately called 911. When questioned about anyone who might want to harm his father, Christian mentioned bad people who lived down the street, describing them as smokers who drove a blue car. The police explained to Christian how gunpowder residue could be found on a person's hand after firing a weapon. In response, Christian made a very odd comment, and he suggested that some of the gunpowder might have blown onto my hands when I walked into the door. Although he initially denied shooting a gun, Christian eventually admitted, under the pressure of the police detectives and the explanations of the law, that he might have fired the gun. Finally, Christian revealed the truth, admitting that he thought he had shot his father, and also confessed to shooting both men twice using a .22 caliber hunting rifle. He explained that he was constantly in trouble with his father, and the night before the incident, Vincent had allegedly spanked Christian. He failed to bring home school papers. Christian shot his father as he ascended to the stairs to his bedroom, firing a bullet into his head. When his father moved, Christian shot him once more in the chest. At that moment, Romans was outside of the home, engaged on the phone in a phone conversation with his wife. As Romans entered the house, Christian shot him twice, once in the head and once in the chest. Christian waited for more than a half hour before reporting the murders to anyone. The community of St. John was stunned to learn that a seemingly innocent and harmless-looking boy could commit such a heinous act. People wondered if Christian had been subjected to the abuse, physical or mental abuse. A lot of those are underlying factors when the household, in the household, when it leads to these type of actions. Did he plan the murder? What events or trauma had Christian witnessed? Or was it a result of immaturity or exposure to violent media or video games? Typically, children do not exhibit such violent and angulatory reactions to the extent of committing murder. And when a child does kill a parent, it's usually during the teenage years. But the police were determined to uncover the truth behind the case. However, Christian's grandparents and stepmother held a different perspective. After learning about Christian's arrest outside the courtroom, Liz Romero, his grandmother, angrily claimed, "I knew this would happen. They were too hard on Christian. I knew he did it. He spent the night in my bed seeking comfort from me. I had a feeling he did it. If any 8-year-old boy is capable of such an act, it's Christian." Why did Christian kill? Upon searching the records of the Arizona Children's Services, no calls, cases, or complaints against the Romeros or the family were ever found. However, it was revealed that Christian had frequently gone hunting with his father, who had taught him how to use a gun. Authorities speculated that Christian's family and familiarity with the firearm played a role in the ability to carry out the murders. Christian used a .22 single-action caliber. Christian used a single-action .22 caliber hunting rifle that required the removal of the shell after each shot, followed by loading a new bullet. This is precisely what Christian did on the day he shot his father and Mr. Romans. According to Christian's account, he had experienced frequent spankings. On the night before the incident, he had received 5 spankings for failing to bring home school papers. Police discovered a ledger of spankings that Christian had kept, almost like a diary, where he had noted that his 1,000th spanking would be his last. The 5th spanking that night happened to be Christian's 1,000th spanking, according to those records. Despite the authorities' initial desire to try Christian as an adult, a 14-month evaluation determined that he lacked the maturity required for such a charge. He was not charged with his father's murder, but he faced a trial for the murder of Mr. Romans. Afterwards, Christian was placed into a foster care until his 18th birthday, while still being allowed to attend public school. An Arizona boy who admitted shooting his father and his father's friend when he was 8 was soon to be released into foster care and allowed to attend public school following a judge's ruling. Christian Romero, who is now 15, became one of America's youngest killers in 2008 when he used the .22 caliber rifle to kill his father and his father's friend. Back in 2010, after years of legal wrangling, he was sentenced to indefinite time in a treatment facility and he was told to undergo probation until he was 18 years old. So, basically what's happened in this story is that Christian Romero, in his eyes, as a young child, 8 years old, 7, his father was strict. Never strict to the point of abuse, but in the eyes of the young Christian Romero, he was spanked and demoralized and got in trouble way too often. He thought he was a bad kid. He behaved well in school. He behaved well with other kids in the neighborhood. Never any problems. But he kept that notebook with those spankings. The spankings that apparently hurt and tormented his young soul. And when he thought that his father had given him his 100th spanking, 1000th spanking, all bets were off. And that's when Christian was going to unleash his plan. Mr. Romans just happened to be collateral damage because he was there. This was a calculated and concise little kid. Obviously, he had some mental problems that probably were yet to be fully formed. And he didn't know how to express any kind of anger because he never had really been in trouble as far as with the school other than minor things at home. It's a sad, sad case, but it also makes me think this kid who is at the time now probably 24 years old is out in society, maybe under a different name. Has he been able to be rehabilitated? Can you be rehabilitated from something like that? Can you do it in a juvenile facility, behind prison walls, in a foster care? I don't know the answer, but I do know that Christian Romero, 8 years old, 8 years old, one of the youngest killers, took 2 lives, and now he is out on the street. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Dark Place, where we always like to dive deep into the cases and bring them to the light. Please check out all of our social media pages, which is YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, The Other People's Show. And we will be back next week with another episode. Good night.